similar to some of the issues we talked about yesterday, resiliency and integrity are somewhat invisible in a home, that it's not something that may seem as obvious to a home buyer. So the question then becomes, how do we sell that to the customer? And so the question I want to pose to Mike first, and then we'll go around the table here to kind of react to what he shares, is how can we better present or promote these concepts, these features at the sales center? So, Mike, what do you think?
This is another one that I think is pre-sales center as much as it is sales center. Yes, again, we can demonstrate, we can leave some things open to show the differences, show how things have improved, how codes have improved, the construction of a home, and you can leave some areas open and visible that are normally invisible and hidden, but pre-education, because the shoppers are. I mean, we're all buying online now for years. It was 28 years ago that I started challenging salespeople that if they didn't get better human skills and communication skills, technology would replace them. And the internet was then here and starting, and we knew it was going to make this impact as we look forward. But we need to use the internet now better to pre-educate and then demonstrate at the models, or at least signage again at the models, reminding people new versus used. It's this used premise hasn't even come up for very long. It's been resale homes. Even for new home builder agents, salespeople, executives, I can remember only a few years ago using the term used to an executive team and several of them thinking it sounded harsh. Don't you mean resale? No, if we're in the new home business, let's be proud that new homes are better than used homes, and people would pay more. Remember, what we're trying to do with the housing transformation is sell the people we're not selling. We're going to keep selling. What I hear a lot from buyers or from salespeople and marketing people, well, buyers don't care about that. Well, the buyers who are buying from us now may not, but the 40% of the shopping market that we should be selling on top of what we're selling does care. They shop, then they go home and redecorate or remodel because they don't believe we're better. So we've got to start to differentiate and brag about new versus used and be proud of the fact that it is better and that there is a market of people who want to buy new that we're not selling because we haven't convinced them new is different. 15, 20 years ago, I started asking sales and purchasing both, what does your house do today that the house you built 5 years ago didn't do for me? And it was hard for them to explain anything. So I would pose that always as a question for builders to check themselves. Forget about used and older homes. How does the home you build today, how does it impact my life in a positive way as an owner more than the home you built 5 years ago? Because it better be better so that you give me a reason to sell my 5-year-old home and buy yours, and you will sell more homes for more money and more profit.
So I think one concept in there that kind of resonated with me is making some of those invisible things visible in your demos, and whether that means, trying to show off what's behind the drywall. How many of you are doing something like that in your show homes where you're making it so that the customers can see what's behind there and why it's different and how it's being constructed? So I think that's important to let them visualize so they know what the bones are in the new home they're about to buy. What are some other thoughts or reactions from either of you?
Go ahead. Sure. In terms of making invisible things visible, what you were talking about before and what we were talking about with codes. Okay, most customers aren't necessarily going to know what the codes are and how strong the house needs to be and what type of glass needs to be used. So you can use that as a selling point to add value to your home, to say this home will withstand up to 180 mile an hour winds or whatever else, as selling it as a value add, even though you got to do this anyway. And selling that, to use the phrase that was said a couple times yesterday, selling that peace of mind. That you can't promise them that a hurricane won't come and knock their house down, but you can promise them you've got this house that's built to withstand up to a certain amount of force. So making that element that you might take for granted as something you have to do into something that will add value to the customer can be extremely valuable to yourself as well in terms of the prices you can charge.
Yeah, I'd echo also from experience what Mike was saying. I think for us, and I was the chief sales officer before I became chief technology officer, and I've done sales for a lot of years and ran a lot of teams. But as we all know, the human psyche, the logic and emotion never occupy the same brain. So when you're looking at it, it's a know your audience type of thing, right? There's some people that are buying homes and there's some people that are investing in homes. And that doesn't mean you're investing to get an ROI later. You're just investing because it's a great place for my kid to grow up, or it's this, or it's that. So I think for us, we're always trying to identify that logic person and that emotion person because it's two different sales types. So the education incline is always going to be there, especially as we're transforming. It's going to be there inherently. But identifying our audience has been the best thing for us because some people, frankly, don't give two hoots about the environment. They're like dollars, integrity, resilience. And some people are like, okay, it's going to withstand stuff. I'm not codes, but what kind of materials are you using? We get them both. So knowing the audience for us has been a big advantage, especially the last year and a half. That's what we really noticed is really identify who you're talking to because that's made a world of difference for us. And the ones that are savvy, your salespeople that are out there that have every tool in their tool bag and know when to pull out which tool for which audience, those are the ones, it's no secret. Those are the ones that are closing way more.
Makes sense. So your research focuses in this area. Can you tell us, Eric, what are some of the findings you've seen when it comes to the value perceived by the customer and how you can influence or create those perceptions?
I'm going to use one example from sustainability, which isn't my own research, but it's research I've used in some of my own work. You all are familiar with like products that you buy at the grocery store to clean your home that might be green, right? That might be certified as environmentally friendly. The research shows it's not just that you can get away with charging more for a product like that. The research shows that customers actually expect you to charge more and will not believe the product will perform as well if you don't charge more. So as an example, let's say I'm going to the store, I'm going to buy something to clean my windows. I can buy Windex or I can buy Greenworks window cleaner. If they're priced the same, I will assume the Greenworks doesn't get my windows as clean. If they price the Greenworks higher, then I might believe that, okay, it is environmentally friendly and it will get my windows as clean. And so this isn't just an opportunity. This is now baked in, at least for those customers you're talking about that care about this stuff, that this home is as advanced, as resilient, as strong, and it's environmentally friendly. They will have an expectation that it will be more. So if they're coming to you when you advertise your sustainability credentials, they're ready to pay more for this.
Yep.
What you see on the screen here, it's not about having the lowest price. It's about having a right price. So this is a very simple model I learned when I was in my MBA about pricing. Okay, so you've got value on the x-axis and you got price on the y-axis, and this would represent a stable industry. It could be housing, it could be window cleaner, it could be whatever. And you see the different players on the line there, and as the value that the customer perceives goes up, the price that you charge goes up as well. And ideally, you want to be on that line because that line represents the relationship between price and value. The more you pay, the more value you get. If you go into a market, you price above that line, well, you're going to be in trouble because customers can get something of the same value for less money. If you price below that line, what you might be doing is starting a price war. That line gets less steep, and now every player in the industry now has to deliver so much more value just to get a little incremental amount more price. So you want to protect a good steep curve like that. Now I've talked to companies, not in housing and other industries, where we've done a simple analysis like this and we showed them you're above the line. You either have to lower your price or you have to demonstrate and communicate more value to get somewhere on that line. And demonstrating, communicating that value can come from lots of places. You might already be delivering it and just the customer doesn't believe you. Or it could be something simple you could do, in terms of materials you're using that would be a relatively easy switch for you, but that might be very meaningful for the customer. But you want to know where you are on that line. You want to have a degree of control over how steep it is and make sure you're delivering the right price for the right value.
Thoughts?
Nailed it. Yeah. The only thing I would say, well, sometimes I use some smart ass comments when I'm selling, and sometimes I just get right down to it, and I'll say, you want to read? Do you want to read by candlelight or you want to read by light bulb? If you're buying candles still, you need to know about the value of a light bulb. And that's kind of what he's saying, is they just don't know sometimes. Explain it to them. They should know the difference between a candle and a light bulb, but that's not my point.
So I'm curious from the audience now, what are you thinking? Do you push back on this? Does this make sense? Do you feel like it just doesn't, it's hard to implement in the real world when the rubber hits the road? Anyone have any comments or questions from the audience? The one thing that pops to mind for me, and I understand this is and we have a question here in the front, someone would like to share. I get that we're talking about the largest purchase that people make, and so there's always a concern of price. But I know I look at probably the second largest purchase that people make in terms of cars, and I look at the price of SUVs like 20 years ago and what they are today, and it's like more than doubled. And at least for those that like to buy new things, they're more than happy to now be spending $90,000, $100,000 on an SUV. But it's not because it's the same SUV from 20 years ago. There's so many more features there.
It's not just that, and we're going to come to your question. If you look at any car company, you look at Toyota, you look at Mercedes, you look at whoever, they're doing this. Mercedes has, 8 to 10 product lines, different sedans, different SUVs, and they price them up that line. So you go to the dealership and you can clearly see this is their representation of the value you get versus the price you pay. It's made extremely clear. And if you look across the industry, you look at Mercedes and BMW and Lexus, all their lines kind of align, right? They may not be exactly the same, but they all understand this is the story we're telling with regard to price.
Okay, here in the front.
So this is going all the way back to the beginning of your presentation, but I was just curious about, you talked about the plant-based, not lumber, but well, I don't know what we want to call it. Plant-based sticks.
It's organic building materials.
Organic building materials. So I guess going back to that, you talked about that there's some research that you guys are still working on. I'm curious about where that stands today, because that's a new concept to me. And then also, where do these plant-based products come from? Is that coming from the USA? Is it coming from overseas? And then second part of that is with the different options of green board.
Yeah, I'll lift the hood a little bit just for anybody that's curious. So people grow a certain plant that we know about, and they care about the flower. They don't care about the fiber. They don't care about the herd, right? To build, there's a couple of different types. You want some for textiles and you want some for industrial. You take that. They don't want it. Initially, they were paying us to haul it off. It was trash to them. But it's not trash when you put it under extreme heat and you add a little thing or two to it, then you can mold it into whatever you want. So that's what we're doing, is just taking, and you can probably guess what I'm talking about, but it's that's what we're doing. And so when we started to come out with a few and put them through testing, they worked great, and everybody wanted to use them. So we're like, okay, we're at our company, we're like, we don't look at, engineers build something, they go, here it is, you guys apply it. We're absolutely the opposite. We're like, no, how about this is the application we need? We need to apply this. Why don't you go back to the drawing board and give us what we want? Because we're the ones selling it. We're the one moving product. You're the one creating it, trying to dictate to us how to move it, how to sell it, how to use it. It shouldn't be that way. Do a complete paradigm shift. So that's what we're doing, is pushing those engineers, BS, we need this. And so that's how we're getting to where we're getting. But good or bad, COVID and the bear market right now gave us the ability to build instead of market and worry about profits and trying to grow 100%. It's a time to build. That's what we did. We just said, we do this and we come out smelling like a rose, or we don't, and we're status quo.
And so most of that material can be found here in the U.S.
Oh yeah, sorry, to that point. Mm-hmm. It's a weed, man. Grows anywhere.
That's the same with the drywall material?
Yeah, because it's all being sourced from the same stuff. Yeah, and like the green board, there's amazing things, and we could talk more offline if you want to call it that. But we can submerge that green board in water for weeks. Does no damage. You hit it with an elbow, it doesn't put a dent in it. You know, everybody knows how fun putting drywall is and how careful you have to be. And you know, if you're on a site and you've been in general, you're yelling at everybody that's touching the drywall, right? Because you're gonna have so much left. Well, with this, it's much stronger, much more resilient, has all those benefits, absorbs CO2, it's stronger, all those things. So that's why we're moving to that. And you know, once we get our dimensional stuff done, we won't stop. There's always something else that could be done. I mean, it's crazy. With this material, you can make nails and screws out of it. It's that strong and it's insane. I mean, you can't do everything you want to do, but you can do a lot with it.
And what's currently the price comparison between green board and drywall?
So I need to be very careful on that currently, but it'll be out on our site really soon. But I can tell you this, it is significantly less.
Okay. Well, that's the answer we were looking for.
Yep.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right. Moving on. Good. Any other questions from the audience before we kind of move on to the next topic?